You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
All right, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Couch Brotatoes. I'm Alex
Morrison.
And I think after last week's episode, I think we're all out of bonus episodes. So,
yeah.
Damn shame. People are getting spoiled. I know that a handful of people in the Discord, including Dustin, was just like, we're getting spoiled. It's like, well, now, bitch, you get your one episode a week. And on top of all that, something you literally were looking at right before then, because again, we talk about our news, we talk about our main topics. It was hard to even sift through the news because of what was happening over the last literally 24 hours.
Yeah. a balloon.
People are freaking the fuck out over here on the East Coast over a balloon.
Yeah, well, it was a Chinese balloon.
Yeah, so I barely know any information on it. The Chinese sent over a balloon. They're not saying what it is from what I can gather online.
They're saying it's a weather balloon,
yes.
Just like the United States said that nuclear bomb was an accident. So, we've used that excuse for many things. They use that excuse, that's fine.
And it's like finally today on Sunday.
It's not even the first time it's happened. It's happened like 3 more times in the past 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Governments lose aeronautical balloons all the time. We lose them all the time over socialist countries that need a new president.
Well, see, the thing that was confusing about it to me is I started seeing a lot of friends that lived in the Hickory and Concord area posting that they were seeing the balloon. And I'm sitting there going, I'm like, wait a minute. It's made it this far into North Carolina and no one shot the motherfucker?
Yeah. Well, you got to take into consideration, it's not just a balloon, it's actually hauling something if you look very closely at the photos of the giant balloon, there is what looks like a small satellite attached to it. So if you blew it out of the sky, you have to determine where that's going to land. And the East Coast is a little bit more populated than the Midwest. So yeah, let's wait till it gets out just a little bit further out. Maybe it'll hit the ocean and we won't give a shit, because the last thing you need to hear, other than there's a Chinese balloon, is there's a Chinese balloon falling toward an eastern coastal city. That's a little bit more scary, but we shot it down. Hell yeah.
America, fuck yeah.
But yeah,
lick my dick and suck on my balls.
Yes, those are the lyrics.
They really are.
But yeah, so they just shot down a weather balloon.
Yeah.
Or a TikTok balloon. I'm pretty sure it's a TikTok balloon that collects information from the TikToks.
Or maybe the balloon was full of the next variation
of COVID. Yeah, sure, why not?
And someone just shot it into our atmosphere. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, that's it. The memes are hilarious, but this will be just one more notch on the post of 2023.
There's so much
when we talk
shit
about it again in a year from now.
Well, there's just so much shit that's happened, outside of even the pop culture news shit. That's just holy fuck, this is how the year is kicking off, apparently. One of them, I was just like, did we have this on our 2023 bingo card? Which was this isn't part of our news segment. It's just something I found that was funny. The dodo is being brought back to life by Paris Hilton, the CIA, and a $1.5 billion unicorn.
Yeah.
And for people that don't understand what a unicorn is that is an unnamed investor with a whole lot of money that just wants to see something through, but isn't necessarily wanting their name attached to it. This could be anywhere from a single investor all the way up to a large organization.
No. This is probably the lightest news out of what I suspect would be happening with dark money. Yes. We're bringing back the dodo bird. Yeah,
along with apparently the woolly mammoth as well.
Fuck it, why not? It'll die again. That's all it will. It's a fucking species of animal that shouldn't exist anymore. That's all.
I mean, well, why shouldn't they?
They were extinct
Yeah.
They went extinct naturally.
Right.
The mammoth did, not the dodo bird. The dodo bird was slaughtered.
Yeah. So it's like
because it had no natural predators until man showed up. When man showed up, it got a little wild.
So with that in mind, should that one necessarily be extinct? Could we bring that one back?
Yeah, you could. There's no reason, just like the Tasmanian tiger or a handful of other species that get eradicated every year.
I think a specific breed of rhino, only the males are left or something like that. And like one of them is like infertile or some shit.
It's like the white horn rhino. But like even then, it's just like species are discovered and species are found extinct all the time. So eventually there has to be a balance, because one is going to lose to another omnipredator that just shows the fuck up.
Like maybe in the middle of the ocean. Listen to our Flat Earth episode on the Cryptic Conspiracy cult we dropped last week.
There's a kraken in the hollow earth and the dumbass is in the dome of the earth. But yeah, and
we're all just sliding into hell, singing along, holding hands.
But yeah, like I don't know if you know anything about the dodo bird in school, but like it was found, it was nurtured for a while. They thought it was going to be the next domesticated bird because it was a little bit roughly the size of a chicken, and they went to try to domesticate it, but they ended up hunting it like pheasants or quails and just annihilating the species.
Wasn't they a characterized version of that, the bird that was on Up? Yeah, that they saw kind of in the second, third act. Yeah,
that's a dodo bird. Another thing is like there's other animals that just go extinct constantly. I think there was a rare version of it looked kind of like a peacock, but it got extinct around that time. But it wasn't because of man; it's just because they ran out of food. Like that one particular species they overate, and that's why they tell you not to bring other species of animals to other continents. Simpsons did a great episode about the frogs from Australia.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
it ruined the whole fucking Australia because he had a frog with him. But yeah, that actually happens. That is another part of it. That's true. That's another way to make another species of animals extinct. Is overfishing, overpopulation of an exotic species.
I was going to say, it seems like the only ones I've heard about recently have been like, I've heard about maybe one or two different tree frogs that like can't really find them anymore. Yeah. There's specific kinds of fish that we've basically eaten away.
Yeah. There were an overpopulation of white-tailed deer and bespectacled deer in the, I think the Yellowstone woods. The woods of National Park Yellowstone, so they airdropped wolves.
Hey, they literally we have new doggies.
Yeah, they literally airdropped wolves into the wilderness to quell the population, and it worked.
Now I'm just imagining like a fucking fleet of wolves jumping out of an airplane with fucking parachutes.
It's like
goggles.
It's like Saving Private Ryan. Go,
but with wolves.
Yeah. But no, they parachuted a bunch of fucking wolves, and they do that with a lot of different species. If you ever watch a video about that, like they'll airdrop a certain species of like beavers or something into an area to kill a certain other species, and like it'll be like a crate, it'll land, and then it'll open, and then it'll just be like, what the fuck?
Judgment Day, motherfuckers.
But like they'll get out the fucking like little cage that are dropped in, and they're just like, what the fuck was that? Because you just airdropped a fucking creature. It's
motherfuckers walking out with like fog around like it's a fucking WWE intro.
Yeah. And it's just a fucking timber wolf going after a fucking deer.
Now why is it okay? Now that needs to be an animated show. I don't know. Just for some reason, just those couple visuals have really made me giggle.
Yeah,
that needs to become a thing.
Yeah, that would be cool anime.
It really would. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and move on to our news segment. Something as quickly as it came, as quick as it went. Netflix released a terms and conditions update, basically saying that in order to quell their password sharing, that the signal in which you are logged in from has to be registered from your home address
once every 30 days.
I was reading once a week.
Mine said once every 30 days. I don't know. They could fucking change policy.
Either way, it still has to be pinged at the home address a certain amount of times in a time frame, or you get booted.
Yeah.
I think that lasted maybe 3 days. And then immediately they walked it back and went, never mind.
Well, it doesn't make much sense if you're one of the few people like me who paid for extra screens. That wasn't the big thing when I had Netflix was, I shared my password, but I bought screens per user, and when you got 4 users, you're gonna have 4 screens. So I pay for that. So if they were ever to send me an email saying, "Hey, we pinged this," I'm like, "Of course you did. That's mine." Shut the fuck up.
And here's the thing that's just utterly confusing about it is like they're continuing to raise their prices. Mm-hmm. So they're clearly doing that in combating the password sharing. It's like that one's that just being the extra crap on top of it. But they were literally like, people have dug up tweets and Facebook posts. Like they used to promote and like,
love is sharing a password.
Exactly.
And then I saw a picture of George who's killing Lenny in The Mice of Men, and it's George with a gun, and it says Netflix pointing the gun at Love. Where they're killing Love. And I'm just like, if you know the story of Mice of Men, you kind of understand what I'm saying.
And it also just feels like since the streaming landscape is such like pirates' waters right now, where it's like people are cropping up and dying left and right. It's like since it is so treacherous, it feels like they would want to like come in and give you a nice warm big hug and be like, "Hey, remember who was here first? We got your back." But instead, they're just like, "Oh, I see you logged into HBO as well, huh? Is this really your account, bitch?" They turned into the jealous ex.
So what I liked about like of all the streaming services, HBO always had the best response. Game of Thrones season 2 came out. It became an overnight success just from season 2's opener. People just came out of the woodwork, fucking talking about this show, and then it became the most pirated show online. And the 2 guys that created the show said that's fantastic. They loved that because it's that people watching their content.
Exactly.
And like Netflix doesn't make content I would want to download illegally unless they were to remove content. You know what I'm saying? So like
I think Stranger Things would be the only one I would actually seek out to download.
If they were going to go down the path of HBO, because HBO will delete some of their content nowadays. Like Swamp Thing.
I meant just when they put out new episodes, not to have not to download and keep as a collection, but just being like, I don't have Netflix, but I'm still downloading the new season of Stranger Things so I can watch it.
And another thing Netflix does horribly is cancel shows, like these one-off seasons of like really outstanding experimental shows, and just blew them out of the fucking water. And
we talked about Inside Job last week.
Yeah, not just Inside Job, 1899, which was a great sci-fi adventure. So many of others, Marco Polo, they canceled years ago. All their horror series are dead in the water. Critically acclaimed. Even Shudder was like, damn, we wish we would have thought of that. And Shudder's literally the horror streaming service. And there was, and I'm talking about like Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, high scoring, critically acclaimed shows, dead. Like, oh no, we're only renewing renewable shows. No, you're not. You're renewing in the shittiest fucking product I've ever seen on television.
Let's get another season of Brickleberry.
Fuck it. Let's get a knockoff of Brickleberry called Paradise PD. Let's get a knockoff. Let's get Mount Grounding let's get the artists of The Simpsons to make another show and make it fantasy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, these were not well received, but we're getting multiple seasons. And if I was at Netflix, I'd bang my head against the desk and figure out why this is going on. At least Hulu.
Hello, thank you for calling Netflix. You're approved. What's your show?
Yeah. Like, at least Hulu will renew a season of something.
Or bring something back.
Yeah. Like, so that they're fantastic at that. But Netflix is just so far up their own ass.
Yeah.
But I think it's because this prideful mentality of them being the first.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, shut the fuck up.
We defeated Blockbuster. We'll defeat you too.
You'll be the next Blockbuster, motherfucker. I swear to God. If Redbox decides to create a streaming service, you're fucked.
They tried and failed.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, Redbox tried. But no, I think that's the thing is like, and plus they love talking about, you know, how they helped, you know, destroy Blockbuster in a sense and this and the other. It's like, that's like saying you killed your grandpa because you pulled the plug. Like, Blockbuster was already limping to start with. You just walked over and tripped over the plug and took him out.
It wasn't just Blockbuster either. It was like the mom and pop shops, your family videos, you know.
Well, I bet everyone was moving away from that anyway.
Yeah, but like you killed the smaller ones in towns that don't have the internet supply to do streaming. Like my town.
Well, no, those would still stay up because exactly what you said. They don't have the internet supply.
They didn't have the pull anymore. Also, because a lot of studios don't put out that much product when it comes to physical copies anymore. And now, like your Blu-ray.
At the start of Netflix, they did though the streaming. But what you're saying is, so these areas that didn't have internet, they would actually be thriving as a video store with the new releases because they don't have the internet streaming.
But the product became more expensive. The physical property became more expensive after streaming because there's not a demand for it as much. So when video stores have to spend more money on the exact name number of product they spent last month, and then have to hope that people rent it, and it's just like. Your cost benefit is out the door.
Right.
You know, the price of the product went up, and now you're going to say I got to rent more just to stay in business. You really fucked it up. I'm not saying, you know, they should have adapted for the times. They should have. There's, you know, all stores should adapt. You're this close to being destroyed by Amazon when it comes to groceries. So
so even the grocery store, it's just like
so like I'm not really there's not a lot of sympathy, but there is a lot of. Don't take pride in it.
I understand. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we defeated the great Blockbuster. And it's like, no, you defeated like T-Town Video, fucking third in Maine. Like, congratulations. You're on par with the fucking library next. Yeah. But that's another story.
Well, something you brought up about Hulu even bringing stuff back. We finally got an official word after all this time of rumors and this, that, and the other. King of the Hill is being brought back to Hulu. And that now is still all the information we have. We've not gotten confirmation of if they're going to kind of like freeze the hills in time and, you know, we're just going to hop back into, you know, Bobby in high school, Hank is a, you know, mid-40s adult, you know, this, that, and the other, or if they're going to move it up a generation now where Bobby's an adult and the kids that we saw, Joseph, Connie, Bobby, all of them, now it's them as adults having to deal with current day kids. Because think about it, the generation Bobby grew up in is the same one we grew up in. We're already looking at Gen Z going, that kid ain't right. It kind of works to put Bobby in our age, maybe a little older, and have him now deal with the new generation and even his openness now being challenged by the new generation's openness. And those are going to be certain lines that even he's uncomfortable with that the new generation's doing.
I don't think that would work as well as that 90s show. You know what I'm saying? The 90s show, they went 20 years in the future. Yeah, the Hills are due for the 20 year in the future, but I don't think it'll work as well. But, you know, it's more of a wait and see. You know, I probably want to see a preview first before making like a casting judgment on where it stands. I would love to see a reboot set in 1995. That would be fucking hilarious. You know, just going back to, you know, the old group of guys, you know, because that's why the main pull was the four guys. Right. The family was always there, but it was Hank, his buddies, and Hank and his family. And, you know, you got two sides of Hank. And that's because he was the king of the hills, you know, and I would hate to see the demographic change to like Bobby. Right. I do not want to see a show about Bobby grown up because there's an image of Bobby you have in your head of that boy ain't right, but he's the best. Right. He's the best of the best. He's son of Hank Hill. That's my boy, you know. And if they try to do it after that, I think it would ruin and even soil the image of the show.
Okay, let me pitch something to you then. Bobby is rocking it out, happily married with Connie. Maybe has his own little kid, maybe a little younger than Bobby's age. Guess who comes knocking on the door?
John Redcorn.
Gracie.
I see, like, even that, like, I don't want to see something like that.
You don't want to see like, that would be the dynamic. Bobby having to deal with Gracie. We've already had a child. Let's say because again, the turn of the millennium was very important in King of the Hill. So let's just say timeline wise, they wrap up actually in 2002. Okay, let's just say that's just like if we're gonna stretch it out and look at it truly, the series ends in 2002. So that's when Gracie was born. By that time, Gracie's in her early 20s. By the time they start this show back up, which would be the perfect age that Luann was. And I think having the dynamic of now Bobby having to work with Gracie and give her the same amount of grace, no pun intended, that Hank had to give to Luann, that might be an interesting plot.
I don't want to see that, because the whole reason Luann lives with Peggy and Hank is because Luann's parents are garbage people. You could write one line of dialogue saying Lucky and Luann had to move away and can't come back home. That's still shitty. At some point, you have to make them to abandon their daughter in the town for even the most modicum reason is going to make Luann and Lucky look like pieces of shit. And they're not pieces of shit.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with something like that, was if you're going to do a story about King of the Hill, focus on Hank. Do not try to make me hate what you're going to put out as a fan.
Right.
Every fan's got a different idea. I respect that. But once you lay the groundwork for this is what's going to happen for an established character, yeah, it's going to fucking suck. I think that's what the great thing about that 90s show is we got so little of our main cast from that 70s show. We got just enough. Eric and Donna live in Chicago. They're successful. This is their daughter. End of story. Jackie and Kelso came back. They're married for their third time. Great story. They're off to do their thing. Cool. Fez stayed in the town. Whatever happened to Hyde? Okay. And that was that. But you know what I'm saying? But like even when you're trying to do that storyline, if you're going to do King of the Hill now, bring back Bobby and Connie, bring back Joseph, but keep everybody else who lives in the town. You know, when you start, if they had done that 90s show that way, where they had stuck around, it's like that ruins the dynamic of why the kid has to stay. You're telling me, like, let's say Eric had stayed, he's going to shirk all responsibilities for 2.5 months just to hang around his mom and dad's house with his shitty little kid?
Well, I mean, so one, I think no matter what direction they're going to go in, I'm going to be pretty satisfied, because in retrospect and kind of rewatching some of the new Beavis and Butthead episodes of my girl, because she surprisingly has really enjoyed it. Rewatching those, that is one of the best reboot series that have happened, and it's from Mike Judge's hand. Yeah. So if he can reboot Beavis and Butthead and do such a bang up job, or maybe only, we'll say there's 2 episodes per episode, 2 bits. I think there's only maybe 3 bits in that entire series that just weren't that funny. It kind of felt like filler segments. Outside of that, it was fucking great. I have no doubt that even if, they do go down the route of Bobby doesn't live in Arlen anymore. Okay, so now he's moved away from the family, so now we don't have to see everyone from Rainy Street as much. He lives in another part of Texas or lives in another state. Somehow that gets wrapped in with Gracie being over there as well. I feel like they're such good writers, they could find a way to explain away Luann and Lucky without making them sound like shitheads.
Yeah, see, that's the problem is
without making them sound bad, though. I
know that, and that's going to be extremely hard because you're abandoning a child, essentially. I think
if they could do it if it was an act of ignorance, because they aren't the smartest people. They're very kind-hearted, but Lucky and Luann are not very intelligent. I think if it wound up being a circumstance of forgetfulness to pick her up at an airport, or just some sort of balloon-headed something that like, oh shit, we forgot, oh no, and they feel of course remorseful, but like, I feel that would maybe be the smart way to do it, just out of some sort of idiotic ignorance or stupidity, but not out of any sort of malice.
My perfect envisioning of this is if it's set in like 2014.
Yeah.
If it's set in 2014.
Why that year specifically?
It's before everything kind of goes nutty. Before everything kind of drops off the ship for someone like Hank Hill. Because if you picture Hank Hill other than Hank Hill as just a white guy from Texas, you have a very different idea of what the fuck he would be. And you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
Yeah, so, and even as Hank Hill, as conservative as the man is, he's practical on a lot of things, and it wouldn't make sense for him to be that way.
Right.
So I think Mike Judge is going to have a hard time doing this, other than, you brought up Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead work great because it's just the two of them. Everyone else is not even a secondary character, but a third or fourth dairy character. There are no secondary characters in Beavis and Butthead. There's people they meet along the way. And it works great because generationally, it's just two guys hanging out.
Yeah.
That's it. That
would be the same no matter what, which is part of the reason why 90s show worked, because it's, again, just a bunch of kids hanging out in a different decade.
But that's why the Beavis and Butthead worked in the 90s, worked in the early 2000s, worked in 2010s when it's Grandpa Gorilla and Auntie JWoww. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even the reboot didn't have to struggle that much because it's just like, oh, we're still watching music videos. We're still beating the shit out of each other and having to deal with the man.
The man always bringing us down.
Yeah. So, like, that's how that works. And I would love to see, I'm still going to be excited to see it when it comes out.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But other than that, I have a very specific idea of what I would want to see. But whatever Mike Judge puts out is going to be fantastic. Yeah. I've never really seen anything bad from Mike Judge.
Yeah, and that was kind of my point, is like, he may not go the direction we're thinking, but of all creators right now, I kind of trust him.
Yeah, I would love to see him go back into the live action genre and make another movie toward the kind of way of like Office Space was, which was all out of nowhere.
Home Office Space.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Because he's great at making the small situational family type comedies. The guy that's used to working in the cubicle likes working in the cubicle, play into that kind of personality.
I like working in a corporate office. That's what's fucking
and
weird.
And now he's forced to work at home with the kid and the wife and everything else. Mike, I know you listen to shit. I hope you're listening to this one. Do that Home Office Space. God damn it, yes. But kind of moving on from that, a whole bunch of, basically this has been the week of a bunch of announcements. We have nothing to discuss on this one other than speculation, but this Wednesday, by the time you're hearing this episode, on Wednesday we'll be getting a new episode of South Park.
Yeah.
South Park is going to be doing a brand new season. Hopefully it's longer than the 6 or 7 episodes we got last season. Where do you think they're going to go with this?
Well, it's kind of hard to say
because they fucking go everywhere. But
well, it says the 7 days to air, so it's going to be as current as humanly possible. I imagine they're going to make a kind of poke fun at Ukraine and Russia.
Oh my God, the Chinese balloon.
Yeah, they'll do that probably like the 7th or 3rd before ending. I think there's going to be a lot more subtlety on certain things. It's hard to say where they're going to go, and I'm kind of happy not knowing, because the world's a crazy place.
Absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to it. Last season was pretty good. We did a review breakdown. Check it out on the backlog. I think overall we kind of rated it middle of the road. There was no outstanding episodes, but none of them were like, good God, what are they doing? Like they had a few seasons prior. So no, looking forward to it. And I feel like that might have to become... Well, all right. We'll workshop this on air, and we'll kind of ask the Discord's opinion. Do we have a South Park segment each episode after it airs to break down how it went? Or do we save it up and do a full review at the end of the season?
I'll do a save up.
A save up?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say because that could be interesting too. Each week having a little South Park breakdown segment, talk about the episode from the previous week.
We'll play it by ear.
Yeah,
we'll play it by ear.
But along with that, Last of Us is getting a second season.
Yeah, quick announcement on that one. After the second season had aired, or second episode had aired, and right before the third episode aired, they had announced go ahead and said, fucking, let's do a second season. I think it's because not only was the second episode like their second most watched episode of any HBO series ever.
Not Velma.
Yeah, but like even The Sopranos, this is so, like, I think it was like 12 million people tuned in for The Sopranos ending, and this one was like 0.4 more than that.
Damn.
And that was The Sopranos, a show that ran. That was the first show that did mid-season
This
finales.
is a bunch of video game nerds watching this show.
Yeah, and this is a heart-wrenching show. So I think the third episode hit so hard because they found out so much more about a certain character. They didn't deviate too much. They only just expanded it, which is something that I think a lot of writers need to understand is you don't change something. You can expand it all day, but as long as you keep natural to the source material, which isn't a book this time. So like you got a lot of leeway. You don't have to waste your time reading a book. You just play a fucking video game. Spend the 4 or 5 hours watching that one guy play the whole thing.
Well, it's like what you were saying, what writers need to understand is, you add to, you expand on it. That's one of the reasons why the 90s Spider-Man animated series was so good, is they expanded the lore greatly. They added a whole lot of stuff to that series, all the while still holding true to the main source material. They just added to it a little bit more. Yeah. So I also saw a pretty funny meme where it was it said HBO fans seeing that Last of Us renewed for a second season is like this really Wilbur Milquetoast plain looking white guy just being like, yeah, and then it was like Last of Us fans finding out that there's going to be a season 2, and it's just this guy like utterly crying and sobbing.
Well, kind of like it's the kind of a thing is like how far is season 1 going to go into the game? How far is season 2 going to go into the game? Because another part of this was Last of Us Part 2, the game. And if anybody's ever watched that, that's set years later. And it's fucking brutal. It is on tier to like a God of War game, is how with the brutality and how well they show the brutality. And it's justified. That's something else. You're with a character who's justifying their actions of killing people, not monsters. And you have to relay that on film as a show, and HBO is great at that. But it's going to be really hard to do because you're going to have to set it years in advance.
Yeah.
If they were to take a hiatus for a year, yeah, I think they could. But I'm excited. I'm waiting for the season to end so I can go ahead and watch it all at once. Right now, from what I've seen, the additions they've added to the story are fantastic. They've added a little talk show clip at the beginning of the first episode, which explains what the virus or fungus is that causes this. And it's the guy from The Mummy, the brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
And he's hilarious. But like in this one, he's so deadpan and perfect. And it works out really good the way he's explaining the story to people who've never played the game. And then when it starts, it's the game.
Right. So
it plays out pretty well in that first episode alone.
Do you think that would be something that we would want to run down, or is it just kind of too sad and drama ridden?
It is a lot about choice. The game doesn't give you a lot of choice to do the story the way it is, because it's really point A to point B to point C. There is no variations. So yeah, I would love to do a review of it when it ends.
All right, cool. Well, I guess that's what I need to watch.
You and your girl can watch that.
That's going to be a great time.
Film yourself reacting to it. I love those videos.
DC has also been pretty busy, announcing some brand new stuff. It seems like everything that James Gunn is wanting to do is also completely separate from like the Batman universe they're creating. Like it seems like he was told, like, you can't touch that. We're already doing something here, motherfucker. Worry about the rest of our shit. So before we talk about the James Gunn news, we've got a little bit more information on the Penguin miniseries that's going to be coming to HBO Max. We heard about that roughly around the time the Batman was being shown in theaters. They announced a whole lot of miniseries and stuff that they were going to do on HBO Max to kind of supplement in between the movies.
Kind of like a little bit of world building in Gotham.
Exactly. That way they don't have to dedicate as much time in the movies to giving as much backstory. If you want backstory, watch the shows. If you just want the big events, come see the movies. I think that's actually pretty fucking smart.
Yeah.
I really do, because I think if a TV show is done really well, say like Moon Knight, that serves perfect as a character backstory. That way, now when we see Moon Knight in theaters, we don't have to worry about, oh, where did he come from? We've already seen that, you know, the hero, villain, whatever, anti-hero journey. So, yeah, on this one, Colin Farrell recently commented on it. He was saying that it's going to be an 8-part series on HBO, kind of surrounding Oz's rise into power, filling that power vacuum that was created when Falcone was killed, or Falcone, how they say in the movies. How do you say it?
Falcone.
I always say Falcone.
There's an E at the end.
Yeah, the E makes the O say its name, Falcone.
It's Falcon if you spell it like
I was gonna say, if we're throwing up that, it's like, yeah, the E makes the O say his name, Falcone.
I'm not gonna go arguing hooked on monkey phonics.
Matt Reeves' idea originally was to have the Penguin show begin about a week after the end of the Batman film, and then, if it works, if the trajectory is interesting enough and the audience goes for it, we do our jobs right, have a second film, and the Penguin will feature in the second film and pick up where the HBO show will end. So that is pretty interesting. That it does seem like they're wanting to use these shows as the in-between spots, and then have the movie as the big crescendo.
Yeah.
So, what are you excited for? A Penguin kind of mob? Rise to power show on HBO?
Any type of story about the regular villains of our heroes is always good, because Penguin's just a man.
He's just a man.
Just a man. Like, you can't really do that with like a Superman series. It's just like, oh, this alien came from space. Oh shit. Nah, we need a grounded dude who just beats the fuck out of people for extortion, and just is probably just like hyper violent.
And that's what it seems like, because right here it says the Penguin show has been described as a Scarface-like series that will see the rise of the criminal and villain underworld in Gotham City.
Hell yeah, rush, get the yayo. No, they're gonna have to create like a fake drug for Gotham, because like nuke or some shit like in RoboCop 2. You can't use regular drugs in Batman. That's terrible.
I thought they have Venom.
Yeah, or Spice
Spice
Melange. I like how you keep saying that. You have no idea, like
it's from Dune.
Yeah, but the grasps the idea of what the Spice Melange is in the science fiction universe.
No, I love South Park. That's why. And James Gunn has now released his upcoming slate of film and TV projects for his DC universe. So we're going to run down those real quick and see what we think. Superman Legacy, written by James Gunn, will hit theaters in 2025 and focus on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing.
I hope this is like Black Suit Superman, like old Superman, because those are always the best stories. He's older because he ages very, very slowly. You know, he's like a Vulcan from Star Trek. You know, Lois would be like 40, 50 years old, and he'd be older.
But would that work with the synopsis on saying, and focus on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing?
In the comics, that's where the Kryptonian part comes in, is when he's later in life, because he starts experiencing...
See, I know nothing on DC Comics, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so he starts experiencing some issues about other Kryptonians, like Kara Zor-El, or the people that live in the... basically the Glass City, which are the remaining Kryptonians that he saves later on. So it becomes later a big issue later on, because he has certain duties he has to do when he gets a certain age as a Kryptonian.
Right. And see, something else I'm kind of looking through here is I'm trying to figure out if any of this is animated or if it's all live action, because the next one seems kind of interesting. Let's see. All 10 of the new projects are set within the same shared DC universe, and he will frequently share characters. No? Okay, so I guess it is going to be a live-action one. So yeah, the following one isn't as confusing as the one after, but second project announced is called The Authority. DC's Wildstorm characters would join the DCU as members of The Authority, take matters into their own hands, and do what they believe is right.
The Wildstorm characters... actually had their own show on Fox Kids.
Really?
Yeah, Wildcats. That's what it was called.
Oh, I remember that.
That was the Wildstorms guys.
Got it.
And they were all DC characters. They brought them back for the Flashpoint stuff, like briefly, like one guy they brought back, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a Wildcats character. And it's like, why is he in the show? I'm just like, no, they're not DC. Oh fuck, they're DC. Like when you're a kid, you're not seeing that. But it was just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yep, they're all just pieces of shit. They're like the Thunderbolts, but worse.
Got it. So this is the announcement that made me kind of scratch my head and skim the article and see if this is going to be animated or not. Because if this is going to be live action, this is going to be pretty fucking interesting. The Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, the Batman storyline.
The DCU will introduce its Batman and Robin in this unusual father-son story inspired by Grant Morrison's comic series.
Yeah, Brave and the Bold is a little rough because Nightwing's older. Nightwing exists.
And that's what makes me kind of confused, because I've seen a couple animated movies follow this storyline.
I think
if they're going to do a live action one and introduce their Batman and Robin in the same film... That honestly is shocking.
Yeah, I think what they're going to do is do like a multiverse layer situation where it's like Earth 101, 1606 Earth, and that'll be the preamble. They'll give little hints that these Earths are kind of similar, just enough, like one-line dialogue. Hey, did you hear what old Big Blue did in old Metropolis over there? Yeah, that kind of bullshit.
Right.
And then it's just like, you got your sad sack Robert Pattinson Batman, but you still have your old man Michael Keaton Batman.
Oh yeah, no, I know that they're going to do multi-universe, but just talking about I'm talking about just the premise of a live action movie, the debut Batman movie for this universe, and it's going to be with Robin.
Yeah,
that part to me is what kind of floored me. I was like, no one has done that yet. Made their debut Batman film a Batman and Robin film.
Well, Zack Snyder did.
But they were riding off the wave of all the previous Batman movies.
Yeah, but like I said, Ben Affleck's Batman, Robin had already died. So Jason Todd had already died. So that's the great story.
This is a little different timeline.
It is a little different. We're not going to see Robin get killed. Maybe.
No.
Maybe.
But still, that is the first thing they've announced that made me go, okay, you have my interest. What are you doing? After that, though, you got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The science fiction adventure will be based on Tom King's amazing, award-winning recent comic stories and present Supergirl in a way viewers are not used to seeing.
Yeah, those are pretty fascinating stories, because that kind of will go into the legacy of Superman, because he's able to leave. That was another big premise of like the 80s and 90s Superman is, he left Earth for a while. Why? Because Supergirl was here. He didn't have to be here. He went to go do his Krypton bullshit. And he came back with a black suit and was really cool about murdering people.
Well, here you go. This is the one I know you're going to be the most excited for, as you were all butthurt over them canceling the series. Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
They're making an entire film of it.
CCR better do the soundtrack.
So to investigate the dark origins. So yeah, that's all you really got on that. And then the follow-up to that, to play off of it, now leading into the television projects, Creature Commandos, a 7-episode animated show in which Amanda Waller creates a Black Ops team out of monstrous prisoners, and James Gunn wrote all the episodes for the first season.
That'd be cool. They add to like the Suicide Squad lure and all that.
So I guess the other thing is going to be live action, because this specifies animated show. Damn. All right. After that, you got Waller starring Viola Davis. This series features Team Peacemaker and will be written by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who did Supernatural.
Yeah, so it's gonna be like really fucking dark, because I don't know if you watched Watchmen. That was a rough movie.
I saw bits of it. Yeah.
That's another DC storyline.
After that, you got Booster Gold. Booster Gold uses basic technology from the future to pretend to be a superhero in the present day.
Booster Gold is hilarious. Booster Gold is one of the most hilarious superheroes ever written, because he's a man out of time, and he's just like losing. He's like fanboying the whole time, but he's also like, I'm the new superhero, and they're like, who the fuck are you ass? And like you know what's crazy is like while they're fighting like the big monster in the city, he literally stops catastrophic events. No one notices. They literally don't notice him saving the universe, like out of the blue. And he's like, where the fuck were you, Superboy? Like they just talk down to him. Like, we were just fighting this giant fucking robot monster. He's like, but I stopped this guy who turned into a black hole. And it's just like, whatever. What a bitch.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that
he's so fucking up his own ass as being like, I'm Booster Gold from the future. He's like what you think a guy would write a fan fiction superhero character in a video game would be. Okay. And he's just like, I'm going to help Superman. It's just
almost like, they're Deadpool to an extent.
Almost, but he's so campy and dumb.
Got it.
But he has this little robot sidekick. It's fucking hilarious.
All right. Yeah, I'll check that one out.
And it helps me like, don't do that.
Speaking of don't do that, I guess it's been long enough that they feel safe kind of reaching back into this pot, but another series, Lanterns.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, basically it's just saying, just follows intergalactic cops Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan as they uncover a dark mystery.
Oh, cool. They get the Guy Gardner, the racist redheaded one. And Kyle Rayner, the one who becomes the sentient all-being.
I know absolutely zero about Green Lantern.
It's so confusing because they're just cops. That's all they are. Yeah. They're fucking pigs, man.
And the last one announced, I'm about to pronounce this location horribly, but it's the home of the Amazonians.
Themyscira.
Thank you. Yes. It's going to be called Paradise Lost. Set there, the birthplace of Wonder Woman. This drama focuses on the genesis and political intrigue of an island of all women.
Hell yeah. Good luck being a dude.
So I can already hear all the angry white boys on YouTube screaming about this show as well.
I'm kind of curious if it'll pass the Bechdel test when it comes to feminism.
What's that?
It's a test it's a series of qualifications a movie has to get to be considered a pro-feminist film. It's called the Bechdel test. A lot of people call it the bitch test because it was made by two women at like Harvard. God damn. Okay. It is a very neat way of trying to classify a film because it can't do this, it can't do that, it can't do that. It's kind of like the Hayes laws, but it's for like pro-feminist. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying it's very elaborate.
All right, well, man, I tell you what, let's go ahead and moonwalk on over into our main topic. And you know what? It's a fistful of quarters day.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be running down our top 10 favorite handheld games. And I like how innocuous and just kind of free-flowing that title was because I absolutely picked one that barely skirts the handheld graphic or demographic, rather.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to go first or you want me to roll first with our number 10?
Go ahead.
All right, well, my number 10 is the wild card, and I don't know if you're about to be like, okay, yeah, whatever, or flip this fucking table. But Brick from the iPod.
It's a handheld.
But it's an iPod. It's not actually a handheld system, but it was a game on a handheld
it's
item.
Also on the Gameboy. It's also on the fucking Atari.
But specifically the one on the iPod.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that touch wheel. Yeah. You had a circular touch wheel. It was perfect for playing that game, just sliding your thumb side to side across that wheel.
And that's why I was on ColecoVision too. With the dial.
Yep. So it's like it hit that same little thing, but I didn't have a ColecoVision. I had an iPod though. Yeah. And I played Brick so fucking much on that thing. It was awesome. Because the controls were just so smooth. It was the exact movement of your thumb. We didn't really have the touchscreen technology. This was as close as we could get as a touch wheel. Dude, I wish my iPod still worked. I would bust that thing out every so often today and still play that fucking game.
I remember friends having the iPod growing up, and because I didn't have the iPod, I had iTouch.
Yes,
that was the first like coolest MP3 player I had at the time.
Yeah,
and forced me to learn how to use third-party iTunes on a Microsoft computer.
Yep.
But no, I remember saying like the wheel on the original iPod had like a haptic response to it a little bit.
Yeah,
it vibrated just a little bit. Well, not really vibrated.
It just made a sound. Yeah, it made that ticking sound.
Yeah, but you could feel it in your hand too a little bit. You felt like you were touching something,
right?
Which was nice. My sister had the little pink one.
Yeah,
the little little pink one.
The Nano.
Not the little one. Well, this one had a screen.
Yeah, the Nano.
Yeah, Nano. And I'm just like,
the smallest one was the Shuffle.
Yeah, the Shuffle is just like, you don't know what you're getting. It's just like,
no screen, no nothing. Just press a button.
Fucking musical roulette on that.
Which is what we do now by putting every single song we've ever loved in one playlist and hitting shuffle.
Yeah. I'm not feeling fucking Offspring today and play Hank Williams. But no, I remember that one. It was like the simplest thing you could put on that for the first time, because I remember Solitaire was on there.
Yes.
And I think Free Sale was on there later on.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because, all it is just scrolling back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brick is like a classic game, like Snake.
Yes.
Like you're going to keep on a game forever.
No, I remember Mom had a old black and white cell phone. It was like right as they started getting smaller, and it was a singular wireless phone. And yeah, she had Snake on there, and I would steal it all the time and play it.
And just drop the fucking battery on that son of a bitch.
That thing was good for 4 days, bro.
Oh yeah, like the Nokia.
Yeah.
Nokia lasted forever.
Well, what's your number 10?
Chrono Trigger DX, that came out for the DS, but it only came out after the larger DS came out.
Got it.
And it was a port from the Super Nintendo, but they changed a handful of gameplay mechanics on it.
Right.
So it was like Final Fantasy. It was a turn-based fighter, but there were little stuff you could do in the game, like games and stuff, and little trials you had to do that weren't part of the combat.
Yeah.
The graphics were updated a little bit. The sprites were a little bit more refined, but it still kept that Super Nintendo 32-bit look.
Right.
And it was just fantastic to have that. The fact that Nintendo has not supported that game again pisses me the fuck off.
I could see it in your face.
Because, like, they had Secret of Mana, same fucking studio. They ported it over to the SNES emulator. They had these games available. Fire Emblem, all these guys got ported over, but you left this one behind, and it was the one but it's like in the top 10 of SNES games of all time.
Right.
But you leave it behind, and I have no idea why.
Is it not on any of the virtual consoles?
No, even your Switch.
Yeah.
Yep. No.
Damn.
Yeah, and that pissed a lot of people off. Like,
might just be a copyrights thing.
It could be, but if I could play Final Fantasy 3, I should be able to play fucking Chrono Trigger.
Well, my number 9 kind of follows suit in that, and also kind of made me realize just how often they do this sort of thing. My number 9 pick is the Game & Watch Galleries 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I kind of put both of them together because they're both very small games. But same premise being the original handheld that Nintendo ever made was called the Game & Watch. And it literally came about because I don't think it was Shigeru, but it was one of the heads of Nintendo was taking a train to the office and saw a businessman literally passing the time by just pressing buttons on his calculator. And he went, what if there was a thing that I could create with similar technology of like a calculator screen and just create small little pocket games that could also double as a clock.
Yeah.
It'd be like a game and a watch.
Yeah.
And they were just quick little pick-me-up games, bad graphics, very similar things of, get the item from this corner to this corner. And they booted a whole bunch of them and put them on the Game Boy. Now, if it was just that, it would have been pretty boring. But what they did is very similarly to what they do with like Mario Kart these days or Super Smash Brothers. They took the game and modernized it. So you could either pick to play the classic version, which was just a one-to-one port of that old LCD game, or you could play a whole new Game Boy game of the same style with like updated graphics and smoothness and everything else. Man, those were just great because I quickly found out over the last few years that my gaming style isn't multi-hour RPG pick up where we left off kind of gameplay. All the gameplay I liked as a kid was the ability to play for a little bit and then put it down without having to redo what I already did. Yeah. That's why I liked Mario Kart. That's why I liked the Mario games. I could beat a couple levels, turn it off, and it was done. Yeah. I didn't have to dedicate a whole afternoon to playing Mario. I could dedicate 30 minutes to playing Mario.
No.
So with Game & Watch Gallery, perfect for, we're going to go get groceries? Sweet. I'll grab my Game Boy with the one game, and by the time I play through both of those, we're at the grocery store. Word. No. Awesome.
So there were a lot of other manufacturers that use that method. Because
Tiger Electronics did it a lot.
I had a Tiger Electronic game, but not just any Tiger Electronic game. This wasn't the flat white little screen with the little graphics on the side to got to make you force your imagination. It's like, oh yeah, it's Street Fighter, but it's like no. This was like the SP.
Yep.
Okay, so imagine the SP, but just the bottom half like this.
Right.
You press the little purple button, and the inside slid out, and it looked like this.
Right.
But it looked like this, like the SP, flattened out. And it was Biker Brutality. And it was a game where you play or you're on a motorcycle, but you're only moving side to side, and you could do like a kick or a nunchuck. And it was just like, those are the only two moves. And when the SP came out, I'm like, holy shit, they stole that design, those rat bastards.
And every Southern grandma and grandpa had the big solitaire Tiger game that they would play. Yeah,
there was that one. There was the free sale one. Well, by the time the cooler ones came out, they were sturdy. They lasted a long time. The graphics looked a little bit, you can see the cards better. But the old Tiger Direct games would have like the back spot inlaid, so like it was a full graphic background because it was a picture, and then it was just layered.
That's the ones my grandparents had.
And you had like the cross buttons weren't cross buttons, it was two parallel, looked like an equal sign, but that was your up, down, and left and right, but they tilted it to make it look cool. And it's just like all you motherfuckers are assholes. And watching people play those online is fucking hilarious, because I would love a Twitch stream of just like a guy with thumbs just like playing that and like, hey kids, this is hard.
Well, what's your number 9 pick?
My number 9 pick was Mega Man X. Mega Man X for the DS, for the original DS. Cool port. No, it was for the SP. I'm sorry.
Oh, Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance SP. But they released it after the Game Boy Advance was kind of null and void.
Right.
And they're like, hey, the SP's coming out. Let's go ahead and release this one. And you could port it over to the GameCube.
So the Game Boy reader.
Yeah, but with another GameCube game. Yeah, so there was a GameCube Mario X starter. I forget what it was called. But you played the game a certain way on the Game Boy. And then you get Mega Man X on the GameCube. And then you could actually play as other characters. And, the whole point of Mega Man is to kill people and use their body parts, but like you could use that stuff over into the game, and it was really cool for that time. It was one of the first like games I used for that little system, for that little port, because I had the little attachment. The one on top of the Advance, but it went onto the SP as well.
Nice.
And that was the first time I ever used it, and I was just like, okay, finally I got to use it. I'm never going to use it again. No reason to use it again.
So it was mainly just a brand new game?
It was brand new. The Advance had just kind of nulled out. SP was getting pushed hard. Mega Man X at that time was, it was a Mega Man game. They never really tried to.
Mega Man hadn't gotten a lot of love.
Yeah.
At least Mikey got a good ornament above him for over Christmas.
PJ Mega Man, I think.
I think so.
But like. It was fun for what it was. The graphics were ramped the fuck up, and I had started getting back into those games, and Game Boy Advance had started releasing the NES cartridges of the old games. We talked about this before, but yeah, they just finally started porting those over, and then you had enough support for the DS that you could do a Super Nintendo game or two that were worth a fuck. And then that was just one of those ones like nostalgia driven when I had the GameCube and it was coming out.
Definitely.
The PS3 had just come out, and I was just like, oh man, should I beat someone with this GameCube?
Get myself a PS3?
Hell yeah, I should.
My number 8 was Super Mario 64 DS. Now, the reason this one even made it to my top 10, it mainly had to do with the amount of excitement I had when it first got released, and the fact that I didn't get to ever play it until a solid 10 years after that. So the DS had just come out. They were doing all the promos for it. And then all of a sudden, Mario 64 on the DS. Oh, my number 1 favorite game ever. And now I can take it on the road with me. Oh, I want it. Big problem. Didn't own a DS. They weren't going to fucking buy me a Nintendo dipshit. Yeah. That was the acronym in my household, the Nintendo dipshit. So, no, I was not going to be allowed to get that, nor could I get the Mario 64. So I had to wait until I was an adult and on my own to buy my own DS and buy that fucking game myself out of pure spite, because I knew it wasn't a great game. That's why the clarification's on here. It's not a great game. It's on the list because of how excited I was for its release and for the fact that I spite bought it a good solid 10 years after the fact. And I think I got like maybe 10 stars and never picked it back up again.
I bought my DS because I was much older than you.
Yes.
But I did buy it years later. And then about that time, I was like, 3DS is out. I'm going to break out and just buy that. And that's when I played a lot of the DS games was on the 3DS because it's still backward compatible. It was fucking fantastic.
Yeah. No, I didn't get my DS until like 2015.
Yeah. But I will say, I got to ask, out of the 64, the DS, and the Switch, which Mario 64 plays better?
I mean, of course, I still have to go with the original 64, mainly because it's that childhood muscle memory of holding that controller, having the exact button layout the way it is. You know, your hands just get the game was optimized for those button layouts. So, I mean, to do certain jumps and certain moves, it just feels the most natural on the Nintendo 64. The Switch plays really good. I've played both the Virtual Console and the actual cartridge versions. Both play fine. The technology they use in the Joy-Con is not the same that they've used in previous generations of consoles, so you don't get that very smooth directional feel. You can really see that in GoldenEye. It's either like move or stop, move or stop. It's not as intuitive as it used to be. So that's at least my route on that one. It doesn't play great, but the hype that surrounded it at least made it get in this one.
Yeah, mine was my next one was Metroid 2: The Return of Samus. This was a Game Boy only release just for the Game Boy, the OG Game Boy. It was hard. The graphics weren't as good. They did re-release it on the Switch as a kind of like an extra to Dread, which looks fantastic. I kind of wanted to get Dread, but I heard it's very short. But then I heard Metroid 2's on there. I'm just like, I gotta try. It would be unchristian.
I'll come by and say hello.
But yeah, like when I played the Metroid games on the SNES and later on the NES when the GameCube dropped and you could you beat the game a certain way and you could play both, I was like, well, I'm missing a story. Let's find out, And the Return of Samus was the first time I ever acknowledged her name, really. But yeah, it was pretty wild, man. Playing it on the Game Boy and like on the original, that was the whole big thing. And when they ported it over to the other versions for the SP and before Advance, the game was extremely easier because of all the extra buttons, right? Because you could actually map the buttons on that one. The old version you're dealing with 1, 2 crosspad. That's it. A, B, crosspad. That's it. That's all you had. Now you got about 30 buttons. But it's still a fascinating game when it comes to Nintendo didn't have the time to put it on the console, but they did have time to port it to their flagship handheld, right? Which was a great idea because it kept the market open for both consoles, because it is a console technically,
handheld console,
but like to keep the thing alive up into Super Metroid, and then that becomes like, holy shit, that's up there with Mario and Zelda, So that,
I enjoyed the Metroid games on the NES and Super Nintendo. I just never really played them much on the Game Boy.
They're brutally hard.
Yes, yes.
They're not made for the weak.
Much like Star Wars on the NES and the Game Boy. Hard.
Super Star Wars, where you play as Luke and he can do this weird pinwheel spin. And it's just like, he didn't do that in the movie, but I'm doing it all fucking day. I'm killing every creature and droid from here to the end of the game. Yeah,
they ported that game to the Game Boy and it plays even worse. Yeah, I had it though. I could not get past like level 2. It was a horde. Very horde. My number 7, I think this even made my top 5 favorite of regular console games, but New Super Mario Brothers DS. companion to New Super Mario Brothers Wii, but completely different games, different levels, different everything, but same setup. And it was basically just the reintroduction as Mario as a 2D platformer with just really nice graphics. And when the DS was hot shit, well, even when it wasn't, back in 2015 when I finally got mine, it was just so novel to be able to play something so seemingly high quality on 2 screens and get such an immersive Mario experience handheld. Yeah. Especially because, as some of the other games that I'll list on here for, like, the Advance and the Color, they may be Mario games that are side scrollers, but you didn't have wall jumps. Mm-hmm. You didn't have specific spin jumps. You didn't have specific power ups. This felt like I was playing the Wii game on the go. And it was, like I said, it was even nice to be able to have like specific running animations and wall jumps and stuff that I would do from like Mario 64, now available on a new side scroller. So I thoroughly enjoyed the new Super Mario DS game series. That definitely had to at least reach mine.
Yeah. The next one I had was Four Swords. Four Swords for Zelda.
Yeah.
The problem was, if you wanted to beat the game a certain way, you did have to have the 4 other Game Boy or 3 Game Boys. I was lucky; I had 2 of the link cables that had the separator.
Link cables.
Yeah, they had the separator in the middle, and you can actually daisy chain up as many as you want because they're interconnected. I only had 2 other people that had the game. So we played Four Swords with 3 people. And there are elaborate puzzles when you're doing the game. But then we found out that if you bought the console game, you could hook your Game Boy up to it. So that made the game a lot fucking easier. So one of us was playing the Game Boy and the GameCube at the same time while the other 2 were playing on the Game Boy. And it was just like, holy shit, this is hard. And it's just like, yeah, we should have just fucking invested in another person with a Game Boy.
Invested in another person.
Yeah. But like of all the Zelda games, it is more puzzle heavy. The story is cool. The bosses are fantastic. They really. The only game I can compare this to is Luigi's Mansion 3, where you have to take control of 2 characters at the same time. Yeah. And the puzzles are very elaborate as you play through that game.
Got it.
I should have added it to this list, but I didn't because it's a Switch.
I don't know.
That's the hardest thing. Is a Switch a handheld? And it's not, but it is. You know what I'm saying? Because I've never... Hear me on this. I've never hooked it to the TV. I have never hooked a Switch to the TV and played it, other than it's at Brad's house and it's his.
Man, that's fucking with me too. And the reason being is my initial gut reaction is to say, well, no, it's a home console that you can just take on the go. Except they made
But if you're rich, you could do that with all the consoles.
But they also made the Switch Lite that you couldn't connect to the TV. It only was a portable console.
No,
they fucked themselves with that. Otherwise, I would be able to.
You could use a Bluetooth controller and buy a secondary dock.
But you're doing something it wasn't created for at that point. Just like you can buy docks to set up your Game Boy outside of special Nintendo hardware.
To drink and electronically vape. So who God told you I couldn't do it?
But now you're making the Switch do something it was never intended to do in that mode. So as Nintendo releases it, they created a hybrid home console, but then they fucked up my argument by making the Lite where you, by their standards, could not connect it to the TV. So I don't know, man.
That Switch gets its own episode.
Yeah, that has to be its own. I can't rightfully so. Which also, not to do spoilers or anything, I have a feeling you don't have any Sega Game Gear games on here, do you?
No, I didn't have Sega Game Gear money.
Or a PSP game.
Yep, I got one.
Oh, really? I thought my iPod was gonna be the only variation, and the rest was just gonna be Nintendo games.
Nope, I got one PSP game.
All right. Well, my number 6. Did you do your number 7?
Yeah, mine was Four Swords.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. My number 6 is a little bit out there. It finally jumps a different property, but this game gets slept on a lot. No matter how often I play this game, there's not a point in which I get through like the first part of it and go, no, I don't want to do this. Pokemon Pinball.
Yeah, I remember Pokemon Pinball.
Dude, that right next to Space Pinball on the original Windows computers, that's one of the best pinball games ever.
One of the funniest memes, I think, that made me spit my fucking drink out. And you can censor what I'm about to say, but it was a picture of the Space Pinball and the fucking tagline on the top of it, "This game will make you come in 30 seconds." And I was just like, God damn it.
Censor that.
But goddamn, that was funny. I was just like, holy shit.
It's only Cap and his Palestinian rants I have to censor.
Yeah.
But no.
It's starting to make more sense, folks.
But I loved this game, and the cool novelty behind it was, man, you pop off a little thing in the back of this game, you slap a little AAA battery in there, boom, that shit rumbles.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's so cool that a Game Boy game rumbles. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I had to put that on there, mainly for nostalgia reasons, but no one really talks about it. It never really got reported to anything, but it's got really cool levels. Each of the animated pinball machines are very well drawn and crafted to implement the different Pokemon and their style.
That's something like, of all the things Microsoft could have done when it was doing the whole Microsoft suite of games and stuff like that, because it is Microsoft now, it's basically Xbox. Why can't I click files, go to accessories, and go to games like I did with 98 and just hear this giant suite of games? But can you imagine them doing it now, but with different boards, with Microsoft, like a Doom one or like a Bethesda one, or and make that part of the PC? You could have done that, cool. And it's just like, no, you created this weird game suite with 4 or 5 card games, and it's like, I hate it.
You can play Bejeweled.
Yeah, I can play fucking Fallout.
Very true.
Yeah, but if you're older, I feel bad for the older folks. Some people my dad and stuff who got used to playing, Solitaire, Free Cell, all these fucking games. And then when the Windows XP came out, you had chess and checkers and stuff like that. And it's just like, nah, you kind of got lazy and you got rid of those games, you pieces of shit. And now it's like, I was always got to be online. Ugh.
Well, what's the next one for you, man?
Tetris. The OG Tetris.
All right.
So I had a Game Boy Color, and I had the gray cartridge for the original Game Boy. But I had another cartridge that someone let me borrow, and that's when my Game Boy got stolen. It was Disney's Tetris, and you walked around and you played Tetris against other Disney characters, and it was very elaborate. Everyone played a different way. Goofy had weird ass fucking shapes. The fat Goofy, I forget his name. There was it was a fat Goofy, but you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, he had I
don't think I do, actually.
Okay, that's not that big a deal. But
I wasn't a Disney kid.
Yeah, but they all had different ways to play the game. One was extremely fast. One was it was like a knockout kind of thing. If you got Tetris faster, it added levels. If they got Tetris, it added levels to you. So it was a very time consuming game. But I only had it for a little while. But I had the OG Tetris forever, and the OG Tetris has a wild fucking story of how it was invented.
Man, there's a great video by a YouTube channel called The Gaming Historian that did maybe a little 30-40 minute documentary thing on it, and yeah, it's fucking insane. Stolen hardware, bootlegs, lawsuits, all this other crazy shit.
And what's crazy is last year the Tetris world record was broken by a guy for the NES, and they debated for a month, based on trying to figure out if it was legit, even though he did it in front of people.
Yeah.
If it was legit, because instead of holding his controller like this,
held it upside or sideways. Yeah,
he held it sideways and facing the fucking television because he thought he was gonna get caught for cheating. But that's how he plays the fucking NES game. Yeah, and it's just what the fuck?
He's playing it like a flute.
Yeah, but he's kicking ass. And he's kicking ass. And Tetris, motherfucker. And it's just well, you know what you got to do? You got to kill him.
And I love the fact that Tetris was the pack-in game for the original Game Boy to show it was brilliant marketing. Brilliant marketing. They're selling a toy, but including a peripheral, the game, that appeals to a business worker, an adult.
A puzzle. Someone that's going to play this game exactly what they imagine. The guy just sitting on the train needing to pass a little bit of a time. Okay, I'll play a 5-minute Tetris game in between my stops. Boom. Now they're starting to sell the systems. The kid looks at it and goes, oh, what's that? Finds things that it works for them, and boom, now they've subverted the video game boom and crash market again, even though they've been running hard and good off the original NES and Super Nintendo for a while. This is a brand new territory. And another thing to it is the worst version of Tetris is on the Switch.
Yes.
Tetris 99 is fucking awful.
That is horrible. I hate that fucking game.
Just give me Tetris. You could have just gave me the original game. But no, I got to play with 99 other motherfuckers that I hate.
Fuck that.
Nah, terrible. Terrible. Kill yourself.
My number 5, halfway through now, my number 5 is... I really wasn't going to put it, but you were like, it counts. Mario Advance 3, which wound up being Super Mario World from the Super Nintendo.
Great game to have on the go.
Amazing game to have on the go. The Game Boy Advance plays through those Super Nintendo games like butter, and it was strong enough, and the port that was on there is not the original Super Mario World. It was the Super Mario World from the All-Stars cartridge. So there was actually 2 different versions of the All-Stars cartridge. All-Stars, the first version, had remakes of Mario 1, 2, and 3 from the NES. They re-released a second version of the cartridge that had the Super Nintendo game on it as well, with a couple little additions and a couple small upgrades as well. And that's the port that made it to the Game Boy. And I played that thing often. Every time you start talking about like making it to the Star World and stuff, that's where I made it to the Star World. Yeah. You know, and shit like that. So I put in so much time into that game. It was the first like Game Boy game I got that just didn't leave the system for a while. Like, it was just, if I grabbed my Game Boy, it had that in it, so I was content. I was just gonna play. But I kind of talked about the other reasons I like that game on the home console favorite version. So if you want to hear more on that, go back and listen to our other shit.
My next one was the PSP game, God of War: Chains of Olympus.
See, I never had a PSP, so...
Yeah. It was a cool little expansion on the original games. By that time, I didn't own 3. I only had the PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2. God of War 3 had just came out. A couple other God of War games were on the rise. But this was actually one of 2 games for their handheld. The other one, I can't remember the name of it, but Chains of Olympus was legitimately fun, and it got so close to the graphics in it because you are dealing with the next handheld, and Game Boy was kind of on the sly with just, you know, the SP, and PlayStation's like, well, let's get into the game too, but they didn't have a giant failure like Game Gear did. You know, the cool thing about the PSP was the UMD discs. You could buy movies like that, or rent movies like that. I figured out that it was open source code, so I hooked it to my laptop and drag and dropped torrents over and just watched what was it, the Boondocks. That showed the Boondocks on my fucking PSP all the time, and like people were like, hey, what are you watching? I'm like, watching the Boondocks on my fucking PSP. It's the shit.
When you said Game Gear, I just immediately thought, Sega Game Gear, use 8 AA batteries, play for 30 minutes, give us $250.
Fuck yeah. My parents smoke.
My parents smoke and our house smells like dog piss. Yeah, I own a Game Gear.
Yeah, we use a Sega. We have a Sega. We have a Snake too. It's always that.
It really is. That's why I'm sitting here. I'm just like, oh my fucking god, it is. The kid, the friend that had the Sega, their place smelled like cat piss. Their mom smoked and they had a snake.
Yeah. And their dad was always fed up with some shit. But yeah, that,
just ignore my dad.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, boy, about old Dale Earnhardt. And I was like, oh god damn it. 3 for Dale, baby. But yeah, the God of War game that it was ported over was fantastic. Now, if you were to buy the collection, you can actually play the PSP version on the PlayStation.
Oh, nice.
The only difference that the PSP had than the actual controller itself were the triggers. The triggers were pretty much obsolete until the PS Vita came out, and they added 2 triggers. The cross pad they had was fantastic, but they also had the analog stick.
Yeah.
But the analog stick was great because it was textured and it was so close to the fucking wall of the console that you could tell there was probably like a stick underneath there, but it was just enough that you couldn't like slam the thing and break it. You know what I'm saying? The buttons had a great little stick to them, you know. And I will say it was kind of a durable console. Like even with a back that opened wide open and you put a disc in, you know,
it was made of metal.
But it's still like it's even durability for a handheld is hard to say for anybody. Like the SP's fucking tough.
Yeah.
Like the SP, you could duck that motherfucker in the goddamn across the room and like you still open the fuck up.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like when we were making down the list, I was like, man, I need to pull out my old games. I said there's a few of them I know I'm not thinking of, and it's like I've just got like this Halloween candy bucket just full of my Game Boy games, and you're like, you need to put something in there. I was like, I do. My bucket, because again, I'm sitting here going, I'm like, I could throw that Game Boy from my bedroom window down to the concrete, walk down there, pick it up, and be like, let's play fucking Pokemon, let's go.
Why's the L sticking? You don't need the L.
You don't need the L. All you need is fight. Which actually rolls on into my number 4, which is Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Pokemon, that was going to be one of mine. Fantastic games for second generation Pokemon.
Absolutely
fantastic.
Played on both the original Game Boy and your color. Pop it in your color, you get a nice little color palette. Yet if you were a broke motherfucker and couldn't afford the color, pop that shit in your pocket and it will still work.
Well, what's crazy is like this, out of all the Pokemon games, from what I've read, it's the only one that doesn't have a lot of the previous generation Pokemon.
Yes. So that was so of course blue ranks a little higher or yellow rather ranks a little higher for me, but gold and silver was really great because it didn't feel like the Pokemon generations were getting too weird yet. It felt like, oh yeah, these guys probably could think of another 150 weird animal looking things, and the designs were cool. I like the idea of what was it, capturing like different nuts and acorns, and then you bring it to the guy and he creates Pokeballs out of them. Dude, that's fucking cool. They introduced the breeding system where it's like if you caught a male and a female of a certain one, you could breed the animal or Pokemon into having new ones. All of that shit was so cool. I remember there was even one that you could actually, no, it wasn't breeding, it was taking it to a daycare. That's what it was. The breeding system was a part of it. The daycare I thought was cool as shit. You could show up to this guy in a specific town, drop off a Magikarp, and then leave. Go do your shit. Come back a few days later playing, and he's just and you can like check in and be like, oh, I've been training it and it's grown over this amount of XP.
Learn a move or two or something.
Yeah, he's learned a few moves. If you're ready to have him back now, it'll cost you this much. If not, I'm more than happy to still take him off your hands and continue to train him for you. Boom! It's just all of a sudden you got a fucking Gyarados because you left it with them. And more times than not, if you left it with the daycare center, they would learn special moves. And like what you were saying, or I swear I got a red Gyarados from it one time, and it was just like, oh, that's so fucking cool.
It was also the same time where the Pokemon could hold things.
Yes, it could hold like its own berry and stuff, so it could heal itself in a fight.
Yeah, another part of the game was you're talking about the breeding center and stuff like that. That was the other Pokemon they left behind was a Ditto.
Yeah,
Ditto was the only original 150 Pokemon I remember you could catch, other than like a handful of others. Mm-hmm. But Ditto, I think, is in every game. I'm pretty sure Ditto's in every game.
Well, it's because it's such a cool Pokemon.
It's an OP Pokemon.
Yeah.
Too. It's extremely useful because, fun fact about those, if you use it a certain way, its XP just gets exponentially larger on attack and defense. And like if you fought one, its XP would match, but stay at that level. So the highest Pokemon you would fight, it would stay at that level until you made it do the change, the Ditto move or whatever. But no, I just use it to make more Pokemon. My favorite part about the gold and silver was the unknown Pokemon.
Yes.
So in a notebook, on the edges of the notebook, I drew every shape of each one I caught, so I didn't caught the same one twice. And I forget how many it was, but it was enough to fill up a notebook.
It's enough for an alphabet. There's one per letter of the alphabet.
Yeah, and so I would go out and look for these individual little cave system, and that's when I accidentally caught like some of the rarest Pokemon, like a Celebi. Celebi's in the game, and it's like the last one on the Pokédex. And I was like, holy shit, I caught it. I wouldn't even try.
Caught celibacy. Wait.
If you're an old man playing that game, yeah. But yeah, like the birds, me and my buddy would always try to go after the birds. And then in this one, they had the dogs, Entei.
Those fire dogs or whatever.
Yeah, the Entei was the fire one. Suicune was like the water or sky one or something. And I can't remember the other one, but it was like a tiger, but it was a lightning tiger. But yeah, that was the cool thing about them. It was like, yeah, these are kids. These were kid games. These were the last kid games I played until recently when I played Pokemon Shield. And I'm just like, kids back then would just stomp kids now at these fucking games because they've made the games really pussified.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to sound like an old man, but like the new Pokemon games are shit. Like, it's just like, I looked at it, I was just like, there's a Pokemon that's literally a sword.
What was Gold and Silver your follow-up on your number?
Yeah, Gold and Silver was going to be my next one.
Nice. I like how Gold and Silver both rank the exact same for ours. Well, then I guess I'll kind of keep that conversation going and move on to my next one to say what my number 3 phone just went off. My number 3 would be Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah.
That was the first experience I had with a Pokemon game, and this game captured my attention much like Mario 64 did. Because, again, being one of those techie kids, always liking, the coolest and latest, either technology or shiny new piece of something.
Yeah.
The idea that this huge world full of different ideas was inside this fucking saltine cracker-sized cartridge blew me away. And the ideas and possibilities were limitless. It was like, well, I'm going to all these different areas, I'm finding all these different creatures, talking to all these different people. There has to be a bunch of other stuff. So part of the enjoyment I had with that game was hearing, if you fucking attack this truck over and over, there's a Mew underneath it, and shit like that. And it was just, and same thing with Mario. It's like, L is real. It's like, that was bullshit. And no, Mew was not under the fucking truck. It was never there. You could only get Mewtwo, and that was under the cave. So it's like, you had all these weird anomalies. You'd have the glitches, so maybe those were like forbidden or corrupted Pokemon.
You're missing no, which is missing null. You had different ways of getting Pokemon in that one, because Red and Blue is on my list as well. So those are the same pantheon of characters.
Yep.
I will say I didn't know anybody that had Yellow. It was always Red or Blue. I didn't see a Yellow cartridge until I was probably like 15, 16. By that time, I was playing Gold and Silver and hanging out, doing other shit. But
getting laid, some Noka, snorting coke.
Just all the drugs, while I'm trying to go through high school.
Oh yeah, of course.
But so when those came out, I was telling you a story about we went to DC, and it was 2001 when we went.
Yeah.
And we went through this shopping mall, and there was a KB Toys. And my buddy was with me, and I had my Game Boy, he had his, and we saw those in the window, and his mom bought us Red and Blue. They didn't have Yellow up yet.
Right.
And we both played those fucking things while we were on the buses, riding between monuments and stuff, and had a good time. I ended up giving mine back to him because his mom bought it. So I was like, hey. But yeah, it was just wild, because Pokemon had just become up on the rise.
Yep.
I remember the grade before we had the book, the Pokemon book. They had all 150 in the book.
Yep.
Everyone had a handful of cards every now and then. I wish I still had mine. My nieces are collecting them now. And Legos, so I'm really proud of them.
You're like, yes, children.
Yes, let's buy you some Legos. Man, let's buy me some Legos. So that's my not obviously next one was the Red and Blue.
Oh wow.
And so those are a little bit easier to remember.
Yeah.
They do get a little wonky because there are some Pokemon that are standalone Pokemon, like a Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd didn't have a fucking evolution. Scyther didn't have an evolution. Tauros didn't have one. You had the birds, Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno. You had the dragons, Dratini, Dragonite, and all them. You had all these cool characters toward the tail end, and you had like basic animals in the forest, animals at sea, legendary, and it's just like, holy shit, it's very equalized.
Yeah.
And now we have ones that are ice cream
and trash bags,
and that you could eat them. Trash bags. Yeah, it's fucking disgusting.
And exactly what you're saying with that, I think the only reason I wound up getting the Yellow is because I feel like I fell into Pokemon pretty early, like when the anime made its way over to the US and all the other kids started liking it, so I started paying attention to it. So I may have been like a year or two late to the hype train, but the crazy thing about it was I remember seeing red and blue in the stores all the time, being like, I want it, I want it. I think right about the time they were going to get it for me, Nintendo had announced yellow. So I think possibly what had happened was mom had held off and was like, well, if he wants this game, I'm gonna wait to get him like the newest version, because I remember shortly after seeing it in stores, mom wound up getting it for me, and it left such an impression on me, because this cartridge, now, yes, you're red, the cartridge itself was red. You're blue, the cartridge itself was blue. And on each of the cart artwork was like a really big Blastoise or a commanding Charizard. And the yellow one, of course, yellow cartridge with Pikachu on it. But this one had holographic on it. Like the white in the box was like all iridescent and shiny and shit. The others were normal. Oh, those were just normal. This was shiny and electric. Yes. Oh, man. Well, I remember cracking that thing open, looking at him, just being like, oh, opening up the box. I'm like, it's a yellow cartridge. I don't have yellow. And I still remember that intro as clear as day because it's different. They changed it up because it was the Pikachu version. It starts with like, it's like a running animation, but he's at still. And he's like running toward the camera, still standing there. And it's like, and then it's like a zoom in on his face. And then it like clips back to the running animation, but he's a little closer. And then it shows his face again. It's like just back and forth until it's like Pokemon Yellow Edition.
And the only difference between that one and the other ones was Pikachu followed you.
Yes, you had no choice but to pick him as your starter, and then he followed behind you because he did not want to be in his Pokeball.
Yeah, so it was a little bit more adapted to the game. But other than that, the gameplay was the same. The gym was the same. All that.
I will say though, having Pokemon Yellow made for the hardest first boss battle or first gym leader battle, because your first gym is Brock, and he has a Geodude and an Onix. Sure, that's pretty easy to knock down. It's a Geodude and an Onix. When your starter Pokemon is electric and you don't have a choice, and the only other shits that are in your way between you and Brock are Pidgeys, Caterpies, and fucking Pharaohs.
Should have called a Pidgey.
And Rattatas.
Should have called a Pidgey. Should have called a Pidgey.
I did. I still had to train those fuckers up, but it's like, you were screwed. But the benefit was, by the time you finally beat Brock, I was one-shot killing every motherfucker in my path because my Pikachu was so goddamn strong after those battles.
See, I described
it was like Misty saw me coming from a distance and went, "Don't, just don't. Here's my badge."
Like when I played the game, like I've told this before, but like I grind like a motherfucker before I even go to a gym. Like my character is going to be like 50 on the first gym, and it's just like, oh, it's a level 10 Onix. What a fucking fantastic thing! Crush it. And it's like, oh shit, he's got a Geodude. Sweep the leg. He doesn't have a leg. I said sweep the leg.
Sweep the bicep.
Yeah, sweep the bicep. And it's just like that's how I'll play the games, and that's why I'm so good at the new ones, because it's all shared XP.
Yeah.
But that's gold and silver and red, blue, and yellow. Fuck the rest of them.
Well, let's change it up, son. What's your number 2?
Oh, my number 3 was going to say. I still had 3 left.
Oh, well, I thought you also ran in where your Pokemon Blue was.
I just jumped them all together.
Oh, got it.
So mine was A Link Between Worlds, which was the Zelda game for the 3DS.
Yes.
It incorporated the 3D element, a couple other elements. It was the same map as Link to the Past for the SNES, but the new character isn't Ganon. It's a darker realmed character who just shows up and wants to take over Hyrule. It's one of the first ones where Ganon's not in it, kind of like I think it's Link's Awakening. But you know, it's one of those games where if you were to get it and not be a Zelda fan, it'd be fun. And it's one of those games, like, if you are a Zelda fan, it's like, holy shit, this is the OG best map ever created in video game history.
But just with new gameplay on top.
Yeah, just like, hey, you remember that old way of finding the puzzle? Guess what? Now your character can do like a Paper Mario thing and be part of the wall and scale the wall. And like,
that's a cool mechanic.
Yeah, and so they added to it. And like, oh, do you want to pop out over here? You can go through the mirrors now. You can do this, you can do that. You don't have to do the hard way of getting around. If you want to fight a boss a certain way, you can. Are you worried about getting struck? Well, be part of the wall. He can't destroy the wall, you know. And it was really cool to sneak up on characters and stuff. It really added a whole new layer to the game. And the DS at that time, the 3DS and the DSs all had like extra peripherals added to the handheld itself. So like the mic and stuff. There's a part of the game where you have to basically put out these torches, but you don't have any magic left, and so you got to blow on it. And my dad's looked at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm just like, "If you blow on it, it turns the torch out." He just looks at me like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I thought that was also the one where it's like you got stuck on that forever, and you're just like, "How do I get through this?" And you like made a noise at it, and you're like, "Wait."
Yeah. Well, in the bottom screen, there is a hints part, and I never hit the hints part. I'm just like, I'm not a fucking chode. I'm not pussying out and fucking going online and figuring this out. I'm going to do it myself. It's a Zelda game. It's easy to do, and it's just like, nope. I'm going online like an asshole, or using the hints thing, and it says like if you blow on it, and it blows out the candle, and it's like that makes sense because you had the peripheral. At that point, though, you're talking to somebody who had an SP. That's it.
Yeah.
If you tried to blow on a Game Boy, it was because it was on fire. But yeah, the Link Between Worlds was probably the best 3DS game, in my opinion, overall. And it's one of those things I kind of regret giving away, but I gave it as a gift to somebody who was another fan. So, and they gave it.
It went to a good cause.
And they gave it to somebody else as a gift. So like it's made its money's worth as a product for me.
Yeah. Well, that's good, though. I always like hearing the thing of it getting passed down through the different fans so everyone gets a chance to finally play it. And talking about getting a chance to finally play it, my number 2 would be Mario Advance 4, which wound up being Mario 3 from the NES, now on handheld. Same as before, it's the All-Stars version with the updated graphics. But with that one, of course, you were able to save items. So if you got like an abundance of fire flowers in the level, you could save them and then reuse them later on. The Toad Shacks that you would jump up and, get a gift from them, you could just put that in your chest. So it created a very fun dynamic where you could enter a level with a power-up.
Yeah.
So I had like my treasure chest full. I had like 20 different power-ups at all times. So it was like every time I entered a level, I was like, P-Wing, Fire Flower, Frog. So I was rocking those things at the start of every level, which made it more fun because most of the time, unless you carried one over after, getting your block, you started every level either big or small. You never really started with a power-up. So starting a level sometimes with a star or starting with a fire flower just changed the dynamic entirely. So it just opened it up for a lot more fun gameplay, and it just finally gave me a chance to play that one more because, again, I had access to a Super Nintendo. I had access to a regular NES, but the only one I really owned was the 64. I had to go to my aunt's house or my grandmother's house to play the other systems. Now all I had to do was just sit in my bed with a bowl of popcorn and I could actually play that game whenever I wanted. So yeah, played that one a shit ton.
The Mario games for the handheld were always kind of fascinating. I'd always play like the ones that always seemed like they weren't Mario games, like the Dr. Marios and stuff like that.
Mario Golf,
yeah. A buddy of mine's a big fan of that, and I'm just like, just play a golf game. Like, really, remember Outlaws Golf? That was the shit.
Oh man,
let's play that.
That unlocked a memory.
Yeah, probably saw the commercial. But yeah, my next one was Golden Sun. Golden Sun was the end-all be-all when it came to be the competition to Final Fantasy. A great version of this is how the South Park games are made. The first South Park game is made in the tradition of Final Fantasy, where you stand in one spot, fight, turn, fight. That's it. That's all that game is. Golden Sun forced you to move around the board, and your attacks could only be certain ways, like chess. If you move a chess piece a certain way, and it only has certain ways of moving and certain ways of killing, that was more my speed. So playing Golden Sun was fantastic. They ported it over to the PSP, but I originally played it on the SP for Game Boy, and holy shit, what a game.
Yeah.
The opening game is a snowball fight. The opening game is literally just kids fighting in a snowball fight in a schoolyard, and I'm just like, okay, like I guess it's a kid's story. And then it goes into, no, you're in a Final Fantasy realm and you will die. And it's just like, holy shit, am I fighting the devil? Like, and that was the story of Golden Sun. Golden Sun, I wish they had kept it going, but it was one of those series that kind of got beat out by Final Fantasy when it came to those type of games.
Right.
And there was so much more stuff coming out that they couldn't compete with. It was like Chrono Trigger, just couldn't keep online with like Mario, Sonic, and all them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's because it's so elaborate. And those games tend not to do well on the child consoles.
No.
Yeah, not like Friday the 13th or anything. Which is another game they should release. The original Friday the 13th game.
Yes. Even if they made it like a limited free play for just October, that would be awesome. They made one
Friday the 13th game. It was a 5-on-4.
Yeah, I've seen gameplay on that.
It was a 5-on-1. And it's like, you guys are too jacked to be fucking teenagers.
It was like a Slender Man game.
Yeah. Or like Evolve.
And my number one favorite handheld game, and it's such a cop-out, but I cannot understate the amount of excitement that I had when Nintendo put their NES games on the Game Boy Advance. Now, not the Mario ones I've been talking about where it's like the All-Stars versions. I mean, straight exact ports of these NES games. For a solid month, there was a GameStop right inside of Spartanburg, around the corner from like the mall and the Target that we would venture to nearly every weekend. For a solid month, I had them make a pit stop at that location so I could go in and bug that motherfucker. Do you have Mario Brothers for the NES on the Game Boy Advance yet? No, we had some earlier this week, but they sold out. Ugh. It took a month to finally get my hands on that thing. And once I did, that's why when I pulled out everything, that instruction manual that's the instruction manual I still have. I cherished every bit of that game because that was my favorite game of all time, period. It's like Mario 64 definitely is my favorite now, but then it was the original NES Mario game. I adored that thing. I had specific memories of it even as a kid, and it's like, even though I was still a kid getting that game on there, I meant like childhood memory fun. And just being able to have that on my game system or on my handheld, yeah, it's my number one. It's a home console game, but the amount of joy and excitement when I saw that they were releasing that and Excite Bike and all the Balloon Pop and all these other games for it, I was just like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is perfection. So the joy that it gave me buying that box and opening it up and flipping through the instruction manual and just being able to play it whenever I wanted, it has to go as my number one.
Yeah, and the NES ones being blawed over were a little too good. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember I had Ice Climbers. I had that one. But I had a very bad experience, too, because the Game Boy Advance game I bought for the NES was Legend of Zelda 2 Adventures of Link.
Oh, no.
And it's the worst fucking game you could ever play. It should have killed the franchise. But you know what made it good? I had a Nintendo Power with the holographic silver cover.
Yes.
With the maps to every Zelda game up to that point published in that book, and I've lost that book. But it was talking about the re-release of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on the GameCube, and they were pushing Wind Waker at the time, and in it you open it up and it told you how to beat Legend of Zelda and Legend of Zelda 2, and it told you how to beat these games, and I'm just like, thank God, because it was still wrong. Like, the way they wrote it, it was still wrong. So I had to take a marker and draw from one. It would show like the screen and the level in full perpetuity, and then I would I'll take a Sharpie and I drew in this magazine. It went from here to this diagram of this level, and then this one went to this one, and I had to draw a line because they kept just publishing random fucking ones. It's like, this is how you beat this level. It's like, yeah, that's great, but it doesn't tell me what happens to the next level, motherfucker. So you got to tell me which way I'm going.
Well, what was your number one?
My number one was Uncharted for the PSP because it links to the original Uncharted game. Fun fact, I bought all three of the games later on when the PlayStation Network after it got hacked. And then I said, okay, now it's a good time to get a user account because now they probably fixed that shit. And so I created a PlayStation account, and then I still had my Vita or not the Vita, but the PSP, and it was at the dog days of that fucking thing. That system wasn't being supported anymore, and I was like, okay, what's the point of the Uncharted game? And I looked online and said, oh no, it ports over to the Uncharted games for the PlayStation. So I hooked a USB up cord to it. It's like, do you want to transfer data file? I was like, yeah, transfer data file. PlayStation Network sends me a message. Congratulations. Thank you for using, was it Naughty Dog Games? PlayStation would like to reward you with this. And it was a fucking $40 gift card for the PlayStation Network. And it was because I used the original PSP and it was still active and still updated that they gave me $40.
Wow.
And that's why it's my favorite, because it gave me money.
Hey man, if my number one can be just the feeling I had when it got released.
You know what I did with that $40? Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 were on sale on the PlayStation Network for $20. So I bought all 3 and waited 2 days for it to download on my shitty internet.
Hey man, I will totally accept that. If the feeling I had of just buying a Game Boy
Did
game
Pokemon give you $40?
No, that's what I was gonna say.
Fuck them.
Nintendo continually just took my money in different forms, but Naughty Dog actually gave you money. So no, I'll accept that as a number one.
Naughty Dog has fucking really pulled it out for that, and that's why I bought at full price.
Yeah, they pulled it out. They pulled out their fucking credit card.
And at full price, I paid for Thieves End on the PlayStation 4, and it was worth every fucking penny.
Man, it's seriously, when we decided we were going to do this, when I brought down my old game systems, it's like, I know I'm going to go through the thing of like, I want to buy Game Boy games again. But then I look at my bank account and I go, well, I do need to eat. So,
yeah. Eating's overrated though, man. Just living on pizza rolls. Yeah. You can do what I do.
Nothing's cheap anymore.
Nothing. You can do what I do. Just take the hot dog barcode and put it over the steaks. It says you bought 12 hot dogs. No, I bought this. And it's just like me duct taping fucking barcodes from like pork chops on there.
Tune in next week for more money-saving life hack tips from Chris Morrison.
If you break into your neighbor's house when they're not home, usually during the afternoon, you can get all the peanut butter you want.
Pro tip. Well, for this episode of the Couch Potatoes, I've been Alex and Chris. Do you have any sort of final thoughts for us?
I'm waiting for all these companies to fail so the cell phone companies can get their fucking hands on them. I can just play all these goddamn games on my phone with this perfect fucking LCD screen at 1080p, and all I have to do is buy a fucking controller peripheral. That's all I want. That's all I need. That's all I'll ever need.